So that's kind of the conceptual underpinnings of today, I'd say. So go away and have a look at that. This is a very practical document about documentation. Yeah. And this is from the MA course that we do at Leeds. This information has come from Jonathan Pitchers, who wrote this there. If you ever need to quote this isn't me. And that's just an overview of the idea of document. But I think this quotation halfway down is really useful. If you substitute notate, this was written specifically with, I think, with dance in mind, for document. So since to document the performance inevitably means to interpret, a clear definition of the purpose of the documentation is essential. To document to what purpose? This idea of the document itself is always going to be an interpretation of something. It can never entirely be objective. I think that's a really useful position to kind of come from. Which means you need to be able to know why you're documenting. Yeah. So this is where your next step, because I know you're going to end up doing a presentation on your documentation from the whole weekend, aren't you? So it might be really useful. I don't know if you're doing it as a group or individually, but it might be useful to start thinking through precisely why it is. Some of these are completely irrelevant to you doing an MA, and others are not. But the one that I am interested in is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. To offer an experience analogous to witnessing the performance itself. I'm using performance again because it's coming from my background. So apologies. Yeah. But these should work for all our forms. And that might be one that you want to really start thinking about. How can you, in creating an exhibition of your documentation experience this weekend, how can you give somebody coming in for 10-minute little view, how can you give them an experience that will allow them to understand what you've been through over this weekend? Yeah? And that's about being really creative, yeah, and imaginative, and letting yourself run with it. Just read through those for me now, just check that those are all clear, those why documents. Again, please the Benton. Within those, there's one that is very clearly a tour as opposed to a map, which is that one, the one about the analogousness. Okay. Some of those are clearly maps. To archive the work for scholars, I would suggest as a map, very simply. To offer critical commentary, drawing on other academic sources, to me, is a map, it's a tour. And then other ones can work between them, yeah? So if you're capturing process-product relationships, it might be that you can work with both.
Yeah, there's a bit of both.
Yeah, and I think the best marketing and publicity will attempt to offer a tour as well as a map.
Yeah. Because you want to understand it, but you want to experience it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then facilitating creative research process by recording sources, ideas, shifts in thinking, etc. Again, some of that might be purely mapping just so that you remember 6 weeks later when you return to an idea in a creative process. And it might be just a jerk to memory. But equally, it might be that you make something, you record it in such a way as to ensure that you are going to suddenly come back and find yourself back in that old place again, and in that experience. So yeah, I don't want to be too kind of, there's no hierarchy, that's the other thing I want to say. Just because we've been trying to do tourist stuff today rather than mapping, we've done this mapping, there's, for me, absolutely no hierarchy. It's that they're different ways of responding to things. Yeah. So this idea of a critical analysis that is only an overview, a map, just as useful to just have a map. Yeah, as orienteers will tell you. Yeah. Than to have an idea of the tour itself. I think the best thing is when they work together. Yeah. And then a huge bibliography for you at the end on documenting, so if you need any kind of tips. Hedden is great, she's about a third down, she's great on documentation, it's a really useful one. And also reason and rye, so if you want to, and the Meltzer. So go for highlights, Hedden, Meltzer, reason, rye. Both. So that's a. I'd go for.
Yeah.
I'd go for. Well, I'd go for both. I mean, that's a book, and it's beautiful because it's doing both map and tours within the book.
Yeah.
So it's a useful way of understanding that distinction. And the second one's a journal. Yeah. Great. We have just gone through. Any questions or anything?
Really interesting.
Thank you. It's been lovely meeting you.
I'm talking to you.
Absolutely. if you want to ever contact me, let me give you my email at least. If you've got any questions or follow up, I'm very happy to respond at any point. I'm just a.fenimore, which is